Welcome to CPN News, the hottest international news report today. The world is witnessing unprecedented shifts as superpowers enter a life and death game on the global political chessboard. From Moscow, Putin is reportedly bargaining territory with Donald Trump, a move seen as desperate amid Russia's quagmire in Donetsk. Concurrently, a top British right-wing leader turns on Putin, flatly calling him a very bad guy, further isolating the Kremlin. In Europe, Finland accelerates military aid to Ukraine, tightening NATO's eastern flank, where Russia is losing ground. Across the Atlantic, No Kings protests spread across America. Millions take to the streets against President Trump's authoritarian tendencies. And most alarming, China launches a plan to reclaim Siberia, signaling Russia's first territorial loss in decades. This is CPN News, where truth and tension converge. Join us now for the detailed report. Putin bargains territory with Trump, a desperate signal from the Kremlin. A world-shaking piece of news has just been leaked from European diplomatic sources. Russian President Vladimir Putin is reportedly seeking to bargain territory with Donald Trump in exchange for a commitment to end military aid to Ukraine if Trump is re-elected in 2025. According to Politico Europe, a group of close Trump advisors secretly contacted Russian officials, including an unofficial proposal for a new sphere of influence between the two sides. Internal sources indicate Putin is willing to consider temporarily ceding energy exploitation rights or administrative control in certain remote areas of Siberia. In return, the US would promote a neutral peace treaty favorable to Russia. This move is immediately viewed by many experts as a signal of desperation from the Kremlin. Economic sanctions have cost Russia over $1.2 trillion since the start of the Ukraine war. A former British intelligence official remarked, "That proposal shows Putin is running out of options. He is willing to sell sovereignty just to hold on to power." On the Washington side, Trump's team denies any secret deal. Yet some US lawmakers warn of the risk of Trump using foreign policy to trade personal interests if he returns to the White House. They worry Trump's public praise for Putin as strong and smart could pave the way for compromises detrimental to the West. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Kremlin-affiliated media maintain unusual silence. However, many Russian military bloggers express concern that if the information about territorial bargaining is verified, it could ignite a furious backlash internally, where nationalistic sentiment and the obsession with losing land remain very strong. A Russian political analyst wrote, "This might be a sign that Putin is truly afraid. He wants to find a way out, even if the price is national honor. And if that is true, history may be witnessing the clearest moment of Putin's power decay, right in his final desperate attempt." UK's right-wing leader turns on Putin, calls him a very bad guy. One of Vladimir Putin's most prominent secret allies in Europe has suddenly turned his back. Nigel Farage, leader of the Reform UK party, who once openly praised Putin as a capable leader, now stated in an interview with The Guardian, "I was wrong. Putin is not strong. He is a very bad guy. And Russia under him is sliding into darkness." These words sound like a political slap to the Kremlin's face, because Farage was once a symbol of the European right wing supporting populist and anti-American ideas. His reversal is seen as a sign that the pro-Putin movement in the West is crumbling from within. Analysts suggest Farage's change comes at a time when the UK and NATO are jointly announcing increased military aid to Ukraine. This includes Storm Shadow missile systems and a £3 billion combat training package. Observers believe Farage's change of tune is not just a politically safe move, but also aims to reposition himself amidst the deep divisions within the European right wing. Russian media immediately reacted fiercely. RT Russia Today called Farage's statement typical betrayal. Meanwhile, Kremlin loyalists accused him of being bought off by the US. However, it is noteworthy that no high-ranking Russian official stepped up to defend Putin, showing Moscow's increasing isolation in international public opinion. A political expert in London commented, If even Nigel Farage, the icon of European populism, turns his back, then Putin is truly losing the ideological shield he once relied upon in the West. And in this context, the question is how many more secret allies will abandon Putin's sinking ship as Russia faces defeat both on the battlefield and the diplomatic front. Finland accelerates military aid, NATO tightens eastern flank. Finland, the newest member of NATO, is making Moscow lose sleep. Yesterday, the Helsinki government announced its largest military aid package ever to Ukraine, valued at over 500 million euros. The aid includes long-range artillery, air defense systems, high-precision ammunition, and several Leopard combat armored vehicles drawn directly from national defense stockpiles. Defense Minister Antti Häkkänen stated, "This is a moment for action, not hesitation. The security of Ukraine is the security of Europe." This declaration marks a profound shift in the defense policy of Finland, a nation that maintained neutrality for decades. NATO sources reveal Finnish special forces units are involved in training Ukrainian forces, focusing on combat in freezing and heavily forested conditions, an environment where Finland has superior experience. Concurrently, Helsinki has allowed the US to establish 2 rotational bases on its territory, enhancing radar surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft near the Russian border. The reaction from Moscow was immediate. The Russian Foreign Ministry called this a dangerous escalation step, warning it would double military strength in the Karelia and Murmansk regions. Some Russian military experts even asserted Finland is turning itself into the first target in case of a nuclear conflict. However, in the eyes of the West, Finland is now NATO's new spearhead. With a border over 1,300 kilometers long with Russia, this Nordic nation holds a strategic role, controlling supply lines from the Baltic Sea up to the Arctic, a region housing Russia's huge submarine bases and oil and gas depots. European analysts commented, if Ukraine is the hot battlefield, then Finland is NATO's cold front. From a nation once proud of its peace, Finland is now the newest military hotspot on the eastern flank, transforming the Nordic region into a direct confrontation zone between NATO and the Kremlin, and that shows. The war in Ukraine is no longer confined by borders. It is spreading across all of Europe. Cooling down or continuing Americans' protest "No Kings" against Trump, the United States is once again deeply divided. Yesterday, millions of citizens poured into the streets at over 2,600 locations across the U.S., joining the No Kings movement. This movement aims to protest what they call the authoritarian concentration of power by President Donald Trump. Marches spread from New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles to Texas and Florida. Crowds held high banners reading "Democracy, not monarchy, and no one above the law." Many wore black shirts, symbolizing the morning of democracy, while others dressed as American citizens shackled by power. The main coordinating organization of the movement, We the People Movement, estimated the number of participants at over 3 million, making this the largest civil protest since the anti-war movement in 2003. The outbreak was triggered by a series of controversial policies from the Trump administration, including the expansion of presidential power over media control and the plan to restructure the federal courts, which the opposition claims will send America back to a pre-democratic era. In Washington, D.C., security forces were heavily mobilized around the White House. Some minor clashes occurred between protesters and Trump supporters, leading to over 120 arrests. However, the majority of marches remained peaceful under the watch of federal police. President Trump, in his speech the same evening, called the movement a setup by the radical liberal left to undermine the country, asserting he will never back down from street pressure. International media, especially in Europe, are closely monitoring the developments. Many major newspapers compare this to a democratic earthquake in the heart of the free world. Political analysts suggest No Kings is not just a protest, it is a warning from the American people themselves that if the line between power and freedom is blurred, U.S. democracy will no longer be a beacon for the world. China launches Reclaim Siberia plan. Russia faces territorial loss risk. A new geopolitical earthquake is forming in the north. According to multiple international sources, China has just launched the first phase of the Siberia Plan, a strategy described as soft in rhetoric but hard in substance. It aims to expand influence and gradually gain economic and demographic control in the Russian Far East. This plan reportedly begins with a series of long-term investment, land lease, and mineral exploitation agreements in the Siberia region, especially around the Amur, Khabarovsk, and Primorsky Krai provinces, areas bordering China. While Moscow focuses its efforts on the Ukraine battlefield and domestic crises, Beijing is quietly increasing its presence, bringing tens of thousands of workers, businesses, and technical experts to live and work. Analysts suggest this is a strategy of occupation without firing a shot, using economics, demographics, and infrastructure cooperation to change the reality on the ground. Some Russian commentators even quip, if the West is bleeding Russia in Ukraine, China is lulling Russia to sleep in Siberia. Leaked documents from Russia's Far East Development Ministry show China currently holds the right to exploit or lease over 17% of the forest and agricultural land in the border region. This is in exchange for investment commitments and energy equipment provision. However, the terms allow China to control almost the entire resource value chain, from extraction to transportation. In Beijing, state media calls this North Asian Prosperity Cooperation, but on international forums, many experts warn this is no longer cooperation, it is a step-by-step encroachment. Moscow's reaction is said to be extremely reserved. Under economic pressure and isolation from the West, the Kremlin appears to have no choice but to accept Beijing as its last lifeline. However, within Russia, a wave of opposition is beginning to rise. Some nationalist members of parliament warn if the Kremlin continues to bow, in 10 years people will speak Chinese in Vladivostok. With the current situation, the seemingly allied Russia-China relationship is gradually shifting towards dependency, and if the Siberia Plan truly moves to Phase 2, including special economic zones managed by China, Russia may face what it once feared most: territorial loss without a four. Single bullet fired. You have been watching the International News Report from CPN News. From the grinding conflict in Eastern Europe to the high-stakes backstage negotiations among the US, China, and NATO, every development crystallizes into a single haunting question: who ultimately prevails when the very lines between information and power have completely dissolved? CPN News is committed to tracking every burning development. We will follow the crisis from the frontline battlefields to the diplomatic chessboard, from the hidden agendas within the Kremlin's inner circle to the strategic war rooms in Washington. Each report, every perspective is meticulously verified, instantly updated, and delivered with absolute integrity. Our goal is simple: to ensure you never miss a single pivotal moment of history unfolding before your eyes. Don't let the truth become lost in the noise. Subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell, and share this broadcast to champion clarity amidst the relentless fog of misinformation. Thank you for trusting CPN News. Good evening, and join us for our next special report.